Mets Musings is an unofficial, independent podcast covering New York's National League Baseball team. It is not affiliated in any way with Major League Baseball or the New York Mets.
Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mets Musings. And it is our half of the season roundtable as we are coming up on the All-Star break, and we've already hit 81 games past, and Mets are on a bit of a hot streak. So this is going to throw a monkey wrench in what they do come the trade deadline. But we'll get into that with our guests in just a second. But I just wanted to say thanks for everybody for always checking in. And I know it's been a while for an episode. I had a little foot injury and couldn't really get to the studio here due to lots of crap in the studio. So had to sit out a couple of weeks, but I'm back now, and we have gotten our cast of characters back here, and I'm talking about the baseball and BBQ guys. We got Len and Jeff. Gentlemen, welcome to Mets Musings.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
And of course, my former co-host and good friend and compatriot, Barry Newman's joining us on the telephone. Barry, how are you?
I'm just fine, Gary. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Barry.
Well, guys, we've been trying to get together for a week or so some of our notes may be outdated, but the Mets have made a bit of a turnaround. And do we see this lasting? Anybody? Jeff, why don't you start us?
Well, they're kind of teasing us, aren't they? I mean, look, as of this recording, four in a row, the dramatic win in Arizona with Alvarez hitting that home run and Beatty with a base hit and Canna driving him with a triple. That was the type of stuff the Mets did last year.
Right.
They had a terrible time doing it this year. And the one statistic that really points out to me is that they are 25-4 when the starting pitcher goes 6 innings. That's less than 30 games. So more than 50 games, the pitchers did not go at 6 innings. That's been the big problem.
Right.
Along with Mr. Alonso and Mr. Lindor, who have the home runs and RBIs, but they can't hit their weight. And
right.
even Alonso's down to what, 214?
214.
And he's going to the All-Star game.
Well, we'll get into that because I'm a little embarrassed as a Met fan. But
one thing is I'm looking at the stats, and Max Scherzer, I know he hasn't had the greatest season, but all of a sudden he's 8-2.
He's 8-2, yeah.
But again, doesn't give you a lot of length sometimes. I hear what, a couple of games going 6 innings, and it's 6 innings. I mean, you got to get him 7, 8 innings. You got to, the bullpen is overworked and up and down. Who knows who's going to be coming and going? It's just a terrible bullpen. The only one you can count on is Robertson.
Yeah. Ottavino's been a complete bomb this year.
And Smith is
I can't figure him out. Yeah.
He teases you.
Yeah. Len?
All right. It's so funny because we are with 162 games. It's like we live and die on every game. Because I was listening to some podcasts that were from last week in June, and the sky was falling. and they were talking about how it's the worst team, and Showalter has to go. The manager of the year last year now he knows nothing and has to go, and Billy Epler's awful and whatever. And now they win 4 in a row, and everyone's like, well, let's say the wild card is 6.5 out, and maybe it's unbelievable. It's been that kind of season. And so now I'm all positive. I'm on a high note. Of course, I think that these discussions probably work better when we're all, complaining. I don't know how well it works and everything's great. But I want to say one thing about Max Scherzer that bothers me. And I don't know how you guys feel about it. Jeff mentioned Max Scherzer. He made a comment the other day, and Showalter supported it. And he said the solo home run shots don't bother me. It's okay. They're okay. He had given up 3 in that game. And the only reason they didn't bother him is because the Mets managed to score more runs.
Right.
But
right.
You give up enough of those 1-run shots, they add up. And that 3 runs, the Mets have lost plenty of games, by less than 3 runs. So I did not like that comment. I was very surprised that he said that, because I think it's wrong. But anyway.
Well, I think they give up a home run every game.
Yeah.
I don't remember a game they don't give up a home run.
Yeah.
Well, I can half understand what he's talking about. The solo home run doesn't hurt you. The 3 or 4 run, 3-run homer, 2-run home, that's what really kills you. But that's all if you only give up 1 a game. When you're giving up 3 solo home runs, of course, it's only 3 runs if you look at it that way. Whereas if he gave up 3 2-run home runs, it'd be 6 runs. So, and if you look at it through a pitcher's eyes, if he gives up 3 runs, that's a quality start, I guess. So that's what they don't care. But you're right, in saying that it's fine if your team scores 4 runs, but the way this team has been scoring runs, it's not so fine. I mean, but to Jeff's point, I can't remember a game going back that they haven't given up a home run. Even last night, Senga pitched a terrific game, just 8 strong innings, but he gave up 1 pitch, gave up a home run. So,
and they were lucky. They got lucky. That it's very it's funny because I had fallen asleep during the game, and I happened to wake up and I see the exciting 9th inning. But that could have he was down to 2 strikes. Alvarez was down to 2 strikes.
Yeah.
Could have very easily gone the other way. So all the excitement of how they came back and won could have very easily been another, wasted pitching performance. And then it would have been giving up that solo shot would have meant something.
Right. Barry?
I got nothing left to add. You guys covered it all. No, all kidding aside. And Jeff, you hit on the starting pitchers record of 25-4, but it only being 29 games out of 86, which makes a bad bullpen to begin with even worse because they're overworked. And like Gary said, except for Robertson, you can't depend on any of them. I don't know what happened to Drew Smith, who I've been high on pretty much from day one, but it just looks like he's lost his slider and may need to come up with another pitch. And like Len said, the numbers do say that they have a chance. They're 6.5 out of the 3rd wild card. There have been many seasons where they made up larger deficits to get into the playoffs. But when you just look at the team, obviously they're not going to go undefeated for the month of July, but they're certainly not as bad as they played in June when they went 7-19 and didn't win one single solitary series. But when you look at the team, especially the pitching, it's just hard to see them really making any kind of a lengthy run. you never know, but just look at it. They are at the top of the league in walks and home runs, which is kind of weird because one is a control issue, the other is a command issue, and the two just kind of don't necessarily go together. And with the offense, as has been said many times, when they pitch, they don't hit. Even last night, that incredible game that they won, and like Glenn said, they were lucky. That last at bat by Alvarez, it was strike three. The ball was in the catcher's mitt, and it just popped out. And I don't know why. I just kind of had a feeling after that happened that something great was going to happen, and sure enough, it did. So the Mets are hopefully putting something together long term. It's really hard for me to see them sustain. Obviously, they're not going to go undefeated for the month of July, but there are definite flaws on the team that are hard to hide, even with a 4-game winning streak like they currently have.
Jeff,
I just want to point out that Sarah Langs tweeted out something last night about Francisco Alvarez. He has 5 game-tying or go-ahead home runs in the 6th inning or later. That's the most in Major League Baseball. So he hits them, late and ties it or goes ahead.
That's
and you
clutch.
know what else, guys? I have it in the notes, which, like Gary said, are a week old, so they're pretty much outdated. But one thing, when we did our roundtable before the start of the season, we kind of glossed over the starting pitching and not having Chris Bassett and Taiwan Walker and replacing them with Senga, who was great last night and looks like he's starting to put it together. I'd still like to see him get a quality start on regular rest, but not having Bassett and Walker, who were innings eaters and maybe would have saved this horrible bullpen and maybe wouldn't have been quite as exposed as it is. And also, to a lesser degree, not having Trevor Williams. These are huge losses in the Mets pitching staff. And the replacements, well, Senga I alluded to, and the other one would have been Jose Quintana, who has yet to pitch an inning. And there's really no reliable longman in the bullpen to replace Williams. And the regression of McGill and Peterson is really hard to fathom. So you put it all together, and it's a pitching staff that I find hard to see really giving the Mets much of a chance to make a playoff run.
Is Quintana, he may be pitching tonight, or he might have pitched yesterday in a 5th rehab start. So he's had a couple of good ones. His last one was not very good. So that's why they're making him throw another one. So I don't know when I saw it, and then I don't remember when it was that he was scheduled to go, but he may be back within a week or two, which hopefully could bolster the bullpen, if not the starting rotation. And let's hope Peterson, maybe he found something. He pitched a good game the last time out. He was really good. And hopefully Senga is still getting used to America. So I'm not, you kind of have to write off his season in a way, because he's in adjustment period. But was sensational last night.
Let me just say something about last night's game, Gary, if you don't
Sure.
mind. Code was fantastic. Fantastic. But he got an extra day rest like he did in Japan, 6 days off.
Right.
And he pitched indoors, which they always do in Japan. So he pitched in a controlled environment and had his normal rest of 6 days like he did in Japan. I'm glad he had a great game. Could that continue in other environments, outdoors, 5 days rest and things like that?
Yeah, his best starts are when he has the extra rest. And also, he's 30 years old, right? So he's been pitching on extra rest for quite a long time. Who knows if it's ever going to be that he can pitch on regular, our baseball rest, as opposed to what he's used to. But you're right. His best starts are, you look at all of his really good starts, He's had 7 days rest, 6 days rest. I mean, yeah.
Well, maybe that's the way they have to go. I mean, you got two guys in their 40s. You got Verlander and Scherzer. I think they could use the extra day's rest sometimes as well. So maybe they should consider going to a 6-man rotation. Especially with Quintana coming back. Leave Peterson in until he shows that he gets hammered again or whatever. And but I think the big thing now is the trading deadline. Epler's got to do something, and he's got to do something that works this time. I mean, last year was they got nobody really. 2 years ago, they traded the number 1 draft pick, got Javi Baez. Was it 2 years or 3 years ago? And Trevor Williams, they let go this year, and Baez left, and thankfully we didn't sign him because he was a complete bust. Even in Detroit, I think he was hitting 208 at some point this season. So he's not a good deal, but they just got to try to get some more offense. And speaking of offense, Jeff, you brought it up. You brought up about Mr. Lindor and Mr. Alonso, or as I call him, Mr. K. Lonzo. By the way, I heard he got a new sponsorship. Kmart. He's going to work for Kmart. He's got no clue what he's doing at the plate. I mean, if he, runs into a pitch and hits it out of ballpark, that's what I get a kick out of. He's all over the internet then. All the headlines, MLB, Alonso hits home, but he struck out 3 times before that. Come on. I mean, it's we're watching Dave Kingman here. And I think the front office is starting to worry about this, because I really think they're thinking, is his best days behind him? Is this what he's going to be? A 214, a 210 hitter that hits 30, 35 home runs and, strikes out 150 times a year. But Lindor, he just looks totally lost. I don't know what the deal is with him this year. I don't know. Who's got some thoughts on that? Who wants to jump in first?
Oh,
Well,
I'll be glad to jump in first,
Go ahead,
Gary. And as far as Mr. Alonso, how do you really feel about him, Gary? And to paraphrase Raymond, Kmart sucks. But I have to defend Mr. Alonso. True, a 214 average is pathetic. But I have to say, I've seen him hit a lot of hard hit balls right at someone. He is coming off an injury where he lost about 10 days. So he's starting to get his groove back a little bit. Well, maybe not, but he's also a power hitter. Most power hitters are streak hitters. I don't think Alonso is a 214 hitter. I think he will pick that average up a little bit, whether it's hitting into a little better luck, or just that he will, like Howie Rose says all the time, he will regress to the mean. And I don't know exactly what his lifetime batting average is, but I'm guessing it's around 250.
255.
Okay, close. And the man will be the all-time Mets leader in home runs probably by the end of his 6th season. And it took Darryl Strawberry 8 full seasons to get that record. Again, does he have flaws in his game? Of course he does. And also there have been times where it's looked like he's taken his slump out to the field with him. He's made a couple of horrific throws to first base. But I think Pete Alonso is the least of the Mets' worries. It's other things too. I mean, that's just the way baseball is in 2023 with these ridiculous true outcomes, the launch angles, the exit velos. I mean, that's just what these wonderful analytics department have come up with and emphasize more than the statistics that we're used to. The rest of the offense, pretty much all of them are below their what would be on the back of their baseball card. Lindor is a complete mystery to me. He's not a 220 hitter. I know his lifetime batting average is well above that. And I really don't get that. But again, he's hitting home runs, he's driving in runs, he's doing it in spurts. So it's not really much consistency, but there's not really much consistency with anybody in this lineup. Right now, I would think the most consistent offensive player the Mets have is Tommy Pham. And you know who else is getting a pass on this team? That's Jeff McNeil. He's having a terrible season.
He's having a lousy season. Yeah, granted. But for them to name Alonso All-Star, I mean, it's embarrassing. As a Met fan, it's going to be embarrassing if he gets into the game and he comes up to hit and he's hitting 214. I mean, that's just plain embarrassing when they have other players that are more deserving. Brandon Nimmo's having a terrific year. He should have been named to that team. Not Pete Alonso. I'm sorry. And I know there's a lot of Pete Alonso fans out there and they're going to get mad at me, but he doesn't deserve it. He just doesn't deserve it. And as I say, as a Met fan, it's an embarrassment but they're so MLB and the Mets are so intoxicated with this power game, power. And he's home runs, he hits the ball hard. Yeah, what's a good hitting the ball hard if you're hitting it right at somebody all the time, or if he makes contact at all. I mean, all you got to do is throw him a slider, just work the lower outside corner to him. You get it in the right spot, he's going to swing. He is going to swing time out, time in, and time out all the time. And it's just it really for him to be the All-Star. I mean, Tommy Pham would have been a better pick for the All-Star representative. Max Scherzer, even you could make a case for.
I thought it was going to be David Robertson, but
or David Robertson. Excellent, yeah. To go with Pete Alonso, it really pissed me off as a Met fan.
Gary, Pete Alonso, did you know that he's in the top 10% of the league of maximum exit velocity?
Yeah, all right. That's if he hits it.
Gary, you had a guest on. You had a guest on. You had asked. I forget who it was. Remember, you asked him. I think he was a podcaster for
Miami.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So Jeff knows where I'm going with this. And you asked him, "What's the importance of how far? What was it? How far someone hits it?
How hard? No, how hard when they come up and they go, hardest hit balls, and he's got 3 names up there, and then it says ground out to short, fly ball to right, ground out to third. What? Yeah. Who cares? Who gives a crap?
He did have a good point. It made a little sense what he said. But of course now I can't remember. I know he said something like because that
the harder.
Right. Go ahead.
You have a chance of getting more hits because you hit the ball hard.
Don't tell that to Luis Arias.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I don't know. This is just a sore spot with me, and I hope they don't extend him this year because I have a funny feeling he is a 214 hitter or worse.
Gary, I did not a chance. He's had slumps like this before, and he's always he's managed to get himself out of them to where he has a lifetime average of 255.
And they're going to extend him. He's going to stay a Met.
255. But if he can get to like 235 with his power, I mean, who else really scares you in that Mets lineup? So,
one day it's going to be Francisco Alvarez.
That's right. That was my name. He's going to be your cleanup hitter, and that day's coming fast. Because he's been hit in the clutch and getting it. And Batty is also slowly creeping his average up there. He's getting 1 or 2 hits a game. He's got to work on his throws a little bit though. His throws are still a little erratic at third, but
Yeah, I'm surprised he's batting 250. If you told me he was batting 250, I would not have believed you. But he's batting
yeah,
250.
I
That's
thought
okay.
it was.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
not great, but you know what? 1 hit out of 4 at bats.
Mhm.
You know,
And Gary, I
yeah.
will give you this. I would have had no problem if Brandon Nimmo had been the Mets representative in the All-Star game. But when you look at the numbers, they don't really look like All-Star numbers. But Nimmo's the kind of player you have to see every day to appreciate.
Well,
and he's in the top. He's in the top 10 of base hits, if that's something.
yeah. Well, and he's in the top 10 of center fielders in the league, so too. So you would think they would have considered that, but I don't know. I mean, Goldschmidt didn't even get picked, and he's having a better year than Alonso. Now I know what that's all about. That's the whole one representative
Right.
thing,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and that's why he got picked. But again, they could have made a. I don't know who makes the choice, but they could have chosen better.
I wouldn't get upset over it. You know what? They want Alonso to be in the home run derby. Okay, he
put him
won
in
it for
there.
2 years. I wouldn't, but I wouldn't be upset. You know, you got to have one rep. You know, maybe he's not having the best year at this point, but I don't think your anger, your vitriol, is warranted. You know, I mean, you kind of save it for other things. But I was at that game, that Tuesday night game against the Brewers, and I saw Peterson pitch, and I was amazed that he made it out of that first inning because, you know, I thought 2 innings was all he had in him, and the next thing you know, he goes 6. Like maybe did he go? Was it 6 or 7? And
might have went 7.
Yeah, it might have been 7, and it was great. But that game, Lindor had a great game. He had a home run, and he made a defensive play, one of the best you're going to see a shortstop make. So his defense, you know, he may not be, you know, hitting the cover off the ball now, but his defense is good. So that's something to consider too.
Len, I definitely think the home run derby played a role in Alonso being the chosen Met to participate in the All-Star game. No doubt.
I'm sure, but he could have went anyway. I mean, he could have went for that and not been named an All-Star and given it to somebody who's more deserving of it. You know, really, he doesn't deserve it. I mean, anybody honestly looking at everything this year, he's the least well, maybe not the least on this team, but he really doesn't deserve it at all. I'm sorry, it's just the way I feel. And you know, like Len said, they probably will extend him, and I think it may be a big mistake. I think look at the lesson with Jeff McNeil. They extended him, and now he's having a lousy year. So he seems to be up and down. He seems to have a good year and a bad year, and then you know, next year he'll win the batting title again or something. You know, so he could be going through that whole big contract thing now. You know, guys sign a big contract and then they have a lousy year, it seems, because they're trying to do too much to earn the money, and then they settle down the next year and have a better year. But you're right, Barry. He's having a terrible year, and he looks lost as well. But you know, then you got to wonder: is it the hitting coach? Did he change a philosophy? I often wonder, why don't these guys go back and watch tape from last year? You know, he won the batting title last year. What did he do last year that made him win the batting title that he's not doing this year, if anything?
Excellent point.
Let me ask you a question
point.
on the batting coach. I know Eric Hinsky is the batting coach this year, and I know
Jeremy Barnes.
No, the one who's now the bench coach, Eric
Chavez.
Eric Chavez. He was the batting coach last year.
Yeah.
Hitting coach last
Jeremy
year.
Barnes this year. I wrote it down because I didn't remember it. So I made sure to
my
put that
question,
in the year.
My question is, can Eric Chavez help out as the batting coach, even though he's the bench coach? Can't he do it? Can he go into that area and help the hitters like he did last year, or he has to be the bench coach and he can't do anything like that.
Well, it all depends. I mean, the philosophy, if Showalter says, maybe he says, I don't want you interfering with other coaches or anything like that. I doubt it. Because the whole idea is to pull together and win. And then if you see something that McNeil's doing, maybe just the pitchers are getting them out. Maybe they figured them out. Who knows? I mean, that could be as well. Rather than him doing something different, he could be doing everything the same, but the pitchers are pitching him different and he's not adjusting. That could be a possibility. But I would think that if a coach, because there's a way of doing it too. You don't have to go, Chavez could go up to the hitting coach and say, damn, last year he was he had his right foot, I noticed, was a little bit closer to the plate or farther from the plate. Maybe you ought to see if that helps him, and then, I mean, there are ways to do it where you're not interfering. You hear Hernandez says sometimes he always used to wait until somebody asked him
Right.
to help out from even now, to help out in management. Management is asked him to work with Daniel Murphy that time at first base, and I think he worked with Duda as well, and other guys. And you guys just switched. How come? So Len has a question.
Because I raised my hand.
Yes,
I love that
you
feature.
raised your hand and you switch positions here, and you're confusing the hell out of me.
It's Gary. Is this the portion of the show where we each get to ask a question? Because I have a question.
Oh, all right. I guess.
So there was a player that was very local. He came back to baseball, was playing for the Ducks, and I guess he was playing pretty well. And the Angels signed him to a minor league contract. I wonder what you guys think. Should the Mets have signed him to a minor league contract? And that would be Daniel Murphy, who could have made a comeback at Citi Field. What do you guys think?
Well, apparently you missed that episode of Mets Musings, because I was advocating for them to DFA Mr. Vogelbach, who is a complete useless waste. I'm sorry. The guy is not hitting home runs. He's not, he gets a home run and two singles and they're all excited, in between every time he pops out or something with his big swing and, Babe Ruth finished there, but the ball pops up to first. I wanted to sign Murphy. I said, what do you got to lose? I mean, they're getting nothing. Well, they weren't getting anything from the DH. They've gotten a little bit more since they put Canha in that position. Maybe they ought to put Mr. Colonzo in there and let him be the DH every day.
Well, Gary, I got your opinion from Mets Musings, but I didn't know Barry's or Jeff's.
Okay. Nice out. Barry, what's
Hey,
your opinion?
if the Mets had brought Dan Murphy, as Terry Collins used to call him, I would have had no problem with it at all.
Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, the way Daniel Vogelbach is hitting, absolutely give Murphy a chance. How much worse can he be?
Well, he was hitting 350, I think it was, when the Angels signed him with the Ducks. So
Is he up on the big club yet? Is Murphy on the major league roster?
I'm
because I've been looking for his name and I haven't seen it.
Well,
And Gary, while you're looking,
he might be getting called up now because of the injuries that the Angels have. Rendon got hurt and Trout got hurt. So
that's disappointing because, and especially with my wife, who we're gonna get to in a few minutes, and her situation with these injuries to two outfielders. Well, Otani is really a DH/pitcher and an outfielder. I thought maybe the Angels were going to bring back Juan Lagares 3.0 and re-sign him, which would have made the missus very happy. But just for a minute to get back to the Mets hitting coach, and I think it is Jeremy Barnes. I think that's his name. But anyway, last year, all we heard from start to finish was how the Mets grinded at bats. That's all you heard. But nobody says anything about that this year. Nothing at all. Just throwing that out there. And I'm a little surprised, even though I'm glad that Uncle Stevie didn't just make wholesale, spur of the moment, emotional changes. I thought that maybe with the way the team was playing at the time, he held his presser that, just to send a message to the Mets that maybe somebody like a Jeremy Barnes would get let go, because for the most part, the Mets lineup, they're all underachieving. They're not hitting or playing anywhere near their career averages. So I'm a little surprised that at least there wasn't one sacrifice on the coaching staff. It's worked before. You remember in 1999 they had that incredible run after like half the coaching staff was let go, and then in June they went on a tremendous run and all the way to the wild card.
I don't know. Letting one coach go is not. I know it's. I really don't think it would have had an effect, but I don't know. And you're messing with someone's livelihood. And you got to give them the full season, I think. But by the way, with Vogelback, when I was at the game, I had not heard this, but every time he came up, they're yelling, "Danny Donuts." Like, I was like, when did that happen?
I'm looking on Baseball Reference right now, and I can't believe this, but Brandon Nimmo has the most strikeouts from any regular.
Really?
He has 86 strikeouts, and Lindor has 78. Alonso 68.
That's what Alonso.
Go figure.
That is surprising.
But he is up one more times than anybody too, probably.
Yeah,
because he's in the leadoff spot.
Exactly.
So he's got that extra time at bat there. But he's still hitting 77 or something like that?
276, yeah.
276. So
yep.
He's doing enough. But just about Daniel Murphy, still with the AAA team. He is ripping up AAA's hitting 342. He's got a home run, 8 RBIs in 10 games for Salt Lake Bees. When he was with the Ducks, he hit 331, had 2 homers and 19 RBIs in 37 games, which included a .861 OPS and a 16-game hitting streak from May 16th to June the 1st. And we didn't sign him, but we kept Vogelbach. So,
and AAA pitching is better than the independent league pitching.
Yeah,
and he's hitting, and he's ripping up.
He's better.
Too. Wow,
he's hitting better there. So, yeah. So to answer your question, yes, we should have signed him, and because he couldn't have done any worse than Vogelbach,
or at the very least, when Mark Vientos was up, giving him like a couple of weeks as the full-time DH to see what he could do, because he's tearing it up in AAA. He has nothing more to prove there.
And when is Mauricio going to come up? He's tearing it up. How do you keep this guy down there? You're looking for offense. He's ripping the ball all over the place. He had a slight slump in June. He's been getting hot again. What do you, and Peretta, I don't say bring him up. He's at high A only, but he's going to push Alvarez a little bit because he's hitting too. He's hitting some home runs, and it's hard to hit home runs in Brooklyn. It's a very tough ballpark with that breeze coming off of the water. And he's got like 7 or 8 home runs, which is, for that league is good, decent. Starting to hit for average as well. Drive-in runs. He looks good behind the plate. They're either going to trade him or keep him, and I hope they hold on to him because that would be some combination. But We will see, but Blake Tidwell was pitching tonight, by the way. I don't know what the Cyclone. I've been watching the Cyclones because with the Mets having a late start, I was catching a lot of the Cyclones game on MILB TV, and so it was. They've been having a better second half to their season as the minor leagues, split the season. At least some of them do. So, but anyway, I mean, there is some players, but they're low. They're low in the minors, and this draft is going to be. There's two things coming up that's going to be very important to Billy Epler's future. I think the draft, for one, and the trade deadline. And any thoughts on the trade deadline? What should the Mets do? Should they be buyers, sellers, or both?
I think that all depends. Second week in August, see where they are. I mean, they're what 6 games out of being 500? 4 games for 500? 4 games under 500?
Is it 4? Yeah. 4 or 6.
If they can get to 500 by the end of July and see how they go the first 2 weeks in August, see where they are in the standings, then you make your decision then. Obviously the biggest chips are going to be Robertson and Tommy Pham. You're not getting rid of Alvarez, Alonso, McNeil, Lindor, Beatty, Nimmo. Nobody wants Daniel Vogelbach, but and the way the starting pitchers go, they're not going 6 innings, so why would anybody want them either? So it all depends on, I think, the second week in August. I think the next 6 weeks is going to.
Well, isn't the trade deadline August 1st?
I stand corrected. It's going to be.
But anyway, by August
He meant
1st,
July.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So not a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I think you can be both, but obviously they are not going to be trading their top prospects. They'd be out of their minds to. As far as selling off a Tommy Pham or a David Robertson, I would have no problem if they partnered with either one or both of them. I would throw Starling Marte into the mix as well. He's starting to hit, and I keep saying that's going to increase his trade value. And there are a few other guys, but I would say those are the 3 most tradable Mets, because you could maybe pick up a few close to major league ready starting pitchers or just pitchers as a whole. And it's just amazing to me that this Mets team, with a history of pitching that pretty much goes back to the mid-'60s, starting, of course, with Seaver and Koosman, has such a dearth of pitching in the minor leagues. How did this happen? It's just crazy.
Well, if you think about it, they really haven't had much success lately, other than DeGrom, Harvey a little bit. But the K generation was a big failure. Pulsifer and those other 2 guys. And really, who came after that? Darling came in a trade. Gooden was really the other big one that came about. They really haven't developed a dominating pitcher in quite some time. Al Leiter came in a trade, and they've had some nice fill-ins. Aguilera filled in nicely for a while there, and other guys, but most of their top name pitchers that have come really lately have been by trades.
But
So
but keep in mind, Gary, they had pitching in the farm system, and quite often they used them as trading chips. Like Floyd Yeomans was part of the Gary Carter trade.
Right.
Or that Neil Allen and Rick Ownby, who turned out to be a nothing. That got them Keith Hernandez. Philip Umber got them Yohan Santana. And I had another guy just now that has escaped. Oh, duh. The Cespedes trade. They parted with Michael Fulmer, and that's what got them Cespedes and got them their last pennant.
But where it is, I mean, those guys never really. Fulmer panned out for a while, and then he got hurt, and now he's in the bullpen. Uh, so there wasn't a lot of even the guys that they traded didn't really pan out that dominating. Floyd Yeomans was a decent pitcher. You know what I'm saying though, that they haven't really developed any star players over the last few years, except for now with Nimmo and McNeil, I guess you'd have to say, and Colonzo and uh, Alvarez and Batty. Those are all homegrown guys, but the pitching, I don't know. They've had some good looking pitches on the lower level, and then they just seem to flame out. And when they get to Double-A, a couple of years ago, Brooklyn had a guy. This was before the pandemic. Harold Gonzalez. Oh, he was terrific. He was an all-star, New York Penn all-star. He was terrific. He was with Alonso's Cyclones team, and just I don't know. He just kind of flamed out, and nothing happened with him. So it happens that they're good, but it's the consistency and rising through the ranks, and they just seem to hit Double-A or Triple-A, and it all goes south. So anybody else? Jeff has a question.
Yeah, no. Well, I was going to say, some of these pitchers, when they use the trades, they were, maybe hyped up too much. Maybe we're expecting too much. Remember Simeon Woods Richardson? Anthony Kay. The kid from Freeport, his name escapes me now, but he was they hyped him up. Anthony Kay is now pitching for the Cubs, so now he's bounced around.
Yeah, and it was the same year. The other guy that you're thinking of, he pitched. They were both drafted. I think Anthony Kay was 1A or something.
The other guy slips my mind. I know he's from Freeport, went to Boston College.
Yeah.
He played in the Cyclones.
Yeah,
Justin
Dunn. Right. Very good. Thank you, Justin Dunn. Yeah, they were hyped up. Maybe they hyped him up for the trade.
Well, it could be. Could very well be. But Justin Dunn ended up with what? Seattle? He went in and
I think went to the Reds after that.
Yeah, he's with the Reds now. He's only 27. So
was he in the Edwin Diaz trade?
Yeah,
I think
so. Yeah.
The one who got away was Montero.
He's really not in the year. He's not. Last year he's with Cincinnati. There's nothing on this year's stats, so he's got Tommy John or something.
And you know what, Jeff? You mentioned Rafael Montero, who was a big-time prospect for the Mets, and they gave him chance after chance after chance, and he just didn't do anything. And I think it was just freak luck that he just kind of ended up in the Astros bullpen. And I guess there's something about being on the Astros and being part of that bullpen that just the philosophy or whatever it is, they got more out of it. And he was part of a really historic bullpen last year. And I guess you can say the same thing about an organization like the Rays. These are the organizations the Mets should try to copycat. And last but not least, it's that team that's in the same division with them that it seems like, except for the 3 games they lost in the NLDS to the Phillies last year, it seems like the Atlanta Braves have gone undefeated since the beginning of June of 2022.
Len's got his hand raised.
Yeah. I'm trying to be polite and not interrupt my distinguished fellow.
Gary just wants to.
You funny guy, you. Let me just say that it's funny. We have the baby Mets now as they've been labeled, but there is no pitching. anywhere that you hear about. There is just no pitching. So this draft, I hope they get some pitching in this draft. But I think Barry mentioned, I think it was Barry, some of the trades and getting pitching for these trades. But pitching is at a premium, and I just don't think that trading maybe Pham, I don't know, but trading Pham or who was somebody else? Did you mention that to get pitching? I think you've got to give up.
David Robertson.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you got to give up a lot to get a decent starting pitcher. And as far as whether they're going to be traders at the deadline or buyers, it's very interesting now the way the Mets are operating. Like the last trade they made, they're basically like almost like a bank. They'll take your bad loan, give me a good player and a bad player. We'll take your bad loan, your bad player, and we'll pay the salary, and then we'll DFA him.
That's Steve Cohen's financial strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I can't see if they're not at 500 at the trade deadline, then I don't think it's worth it. But to have this kind of payroll and not based on if you're going to make big trades, it's not going to be for money. It's not going to be where, the Mets of old, let's dump salaries because we are, we're cash strapped. That's not going to be the issue. It's going to be you want to build up your farm system. So if you are going to be sellers at the deadline, then you're really going to sell off some of your prime, maybe a Scherzer, a Verlander, who's going to help a team, because otherwise you might as well just be buyers and take a gamble, try and get in the wild card and see what happens. As Jeff always likes to say, if you get there, you never know.
No one's going to take Scherzer unless Steve pays a lot of that salary.
Yeah, but
that would have to be the only way to get rid of Scherzer.
I don't know about that, only because Scherzer has an opt-out clause at the end of the year, and they'd only have to pay him for the rest of this year, and then if he picks up if they pick out the option. But somebody, if they're desperate for pitching, they need something. You never know.
I could see the Dodgers
that could happen.
taking him.
Yeah, I can see somebody.
Somebody with a good farm
money.
system. Yeah, money,
Maybe even
good farm system.
Angels, maybe
Mhm.
the Angels can creep a little closer to Texas, or maybe even Texas, the way they've been spending money. Who knows?
I've been hearing people are saying that Scherzer would be crazy to opt out to go $43 million.
Oh, I agree.
But I'm thinking, on the other hand, he can go to a contender for a lot less money if he doesn't need the money. Obviously, he does not need the money.
Right.
But on the other hand, like in trivia on Fiddle on the Roof, on the other hand, he's big in the union, so he's not going to take any less money.
One of my
and
favorites,
he's not going to opt out because
way.
no one's going to give him more. Who's going to give him
Did you
more?
say one of your favorites?
One of my favorites, Fiddler.
Could you Tevye? You know what you do? I bet you do a good Tevye, Gary.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, if I were a rich
man. But on the other hand,
but do you love me? Does she love me?
You love me. All right, we're gonna be doing the whole play.
So does that mean that the podcast that you guys are going to do is going to go from baseball and barbecue to baseball, barbecue, and Broadway?
And
all bees.
Hey,
we do the
baseball, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't beat that. Even the movie.
Yeah.
The movie was terrific. The movie was,
No, it was good. It was good.
It was
with
good.
Topol.
But, yeah,
good
Topol was very
absolutely.
good. Yeah, he
Yes.
was good. And he played the part for years afterwards,
Tradition.
Tradition.
We're off the rails.
I'll tell you, we're crazy. All right, let's play GM. Somebody comes to you with a deal. and it involves either Mr. Colonzo or Mr. Lindor. And it seems like a fair deal. Do you make the trade?
I don't think so.
Now
This is
with
New York
Mr.
City. This is New York
Lindor,
City.
yeah,
You need stars.
Lindor, you have to. Well, you may,
You
what
need
happens if
stars.
you're getting a star back?
Well, what are
let's
you
say.
getting?
Well, that's hard to say. That's your job as the GM.
Oh, I mean,
I'm saying you're the GM. All right, Cincinnati comes to you. They're going to give you Edwin Diaz's brother and Jonathan India. I don't know why they would do that, but
what do they want in return?
and they want Alonso. Do you make the trade?
No.
No.
Jeff?
No, Alonso is just too big of a star. He's gonna be the all-time home run leader for the Mets. He brings that star power, and I don't think he's a 214 hitter, as Barry said. I think he'll probably regress to the mean and be his normal self. Maybe not this year, but overall.
Okay, they sweeten the deal. They give you their number one prospect.
Oh, Ellie
Ooh.
Cruz.
You mean they're number one that's with them now?
Their number one prospect in the minors.
In the
their
minors.
organization. Their number one prospect banging on the major league door. Diaz's brother and Jonathan India. And all this could be yours if the price is right. They give you.
That's why we're not
Alonso.
GMs. That's why we're not
Well,
GMs.
Pete Alonso.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Not for Diaz's brother. First of all, Diaz hopefully will be back next year, and there'll be too much
imagine that
rivalry.
Tandem? Him in the 8th and Edwin in the 9th. It's a shutdown. Shutdown.
Yeah, that's
Game over.
Yeah.
Barry, your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I say no. And with bullpens, they can be great one season and terrible the next. And like Len, you said, Edwin is going to be back next year, and we're not even going to know about him coming back. I mean, it's not an arm injury, so chances are he's going to be okay. But will we see the Edwin Diaz of 2022? Will anybody ever see the Edwin Diaz of 2022 again? Not likely. But I'd have to say no. And as far as Lindor, I think he's as close to untradeable as you can find. I mean, he's got 8-9 years left and some $300 million.
Yeah, talk about money.
Uncle Stevie he may be part of Scherzer's or Verlander's contract, but he's not eating over 300 or anywhere close to $300,000 on that contract. That's just not happening.
But he might pick up half of it and somebody else's bad contract. What about a Yankee? Okay. What about if Giancarlo Stanton?
No.
Pick him up for Lindor.
No.
Bad contracts for bad
Well,
contracts.
for one, the Yankees have this Derek Jeter 2.0 with shortstop, who's also hitting about 200. And he's supposed to be the biggest prospect in this system. This guy Volpe, who they touted as the next, as we all like to say, Derek Jeter.
Number 2 in the program, number one
in your hearts. He's got intrinsic value.
Getting back to the original deal, I make the trade.
No,
with Stanton, you're paying for a player who's never going to play.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the other one with Cincinnati. I'm making that trade.
Okay.
I'm bringing back Diaz and India and the prospect for one player that I can replace. I'm making that trade in a heartbeat.
But I've always liked India. I've always liked India.
And if you do end up making that trade, maybe Alonso goes to the Kmart at 400 Oak Street in Cincinnati and finds out it doesn't exist.
How about
Well,
training
look,
for Armstrong, Crow Armstrong again? He
yeah,
he's pretty high up in the Cubs.
Yeah.
Pete Crow Armstrong. He's pretty high up in the Cubs hierarchy
What
there.
that was a colossal failure, that trade as well. And look, Alonso in that
wasn't Epler,
Cincinnati
though.
ballpark, that's a bandbox in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I know.
He'd actually hit something. I mean, if he makes contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pete Crow Armstrong, another one that they should have saved. And they're talking about trade. You mentioned Pham and Marte. I think Barry mentioned, but the problem is who's going to play the outfield. Then, of course, they could bring up Maurizio, play second, move McNeil to left.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Canha could play right.
Right.
Again, they Alex Ramirez is having a decent year, but he's down, and they really Stanley Consuega is in high A, and there's another guy that they got that's there, but they don't have anybody in AAA. It's like AAA is a bunch of retreads that they just stuck there to have a team in Syracuse. And I mean, they just brought up DJ Stewart, but his glove is like concrete, so I don't know. Of course, that's what they said about Conforto too, which is another guy that they let get away. They probably shouldn't. They should have took a flyer on him this year.
Oh, and I would have loved to have Wilmer Flores back.
Oh, Wilmer Flores, yeah.
And don't forget
terrific.
JD Davis having a career year.
Yeah, well,
and should be an all-star.
Yeah, but no one saw
Yes,
that coming last year. Everybody wanted him out.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
no one
no
one saw that coming.
Yeah, Davis, I'm not that upset about, and good for him. He revived his career. And sometimes it is a change of address, location really sets you off. Yeah, change of scenery. Just something clicks, maybe. So good on him. But
I agree. The Met fans couldn't wait to get JD and Don Smith out of here. And Don certainly isn't killing it. And good for JD Davis. He always had promise. And I think it also helps that the Giants are playing him at one position. And he's doing great. And we're happy for him. But I, like most Met fans, shed no tears when JD Davis was traded away. Unfortunately, they got nothing back for the guy.
Well,
so it looks terrible.
And you see that's on Epler.
That was a rough trade.
That's the kind of humor you can expect on the Baseball and Barbecue and Broadway podcast with Jeff and Len.
Hey, now we're pushing stuff already. Holy cow!
we got to promote. We got to plug.
So, where do the Mets go from here? Can they? Your gut feeling at this particular point in time, your feeling can change in a week. I understand that. But right now, do they make the playoffs? Do they miss the playoffs? Do they retool? Well, we can get into the retooling part at a later date when we know more. But where do they go from here? Do they make it or not?
Well, right now they're 6 games under 500, 40 and 46. They can run the table to the All-Star game. That'll be 44 and 46. 8-game winning streak coming at exactly the wrong time.
Which is what they do every year.
Of course. But if they can make some type of run in the next 2 weeks and be over 500, I mean, the wild card standings, they're bunched up. I know they're 6.5 out, but so is Chicago, so is the Padres, so is Pittsburgh, and Milwaukee's only 1 game out, and it has been done before. They can get hot. I mean, as Len liked to say, look what Jeff said last year: the Phillies.
You did, and you were right, and it's true. if we got to look at history.
All right, Len, your thoughts?
I'm going to stay optimistic and say yes. They will get a wild card. They're certainly not going to catch the Braves. It's not going to be like last year when the Braves caught the Mets.
Oh, man.
But they will eke by somehow. They've got a top-notch manager. They've got players who have championship experience. They will make the playoffs barely, but they'll make it.
Barry?
I want to keep the faith and stay optimistic, but I look at that pitching and I just don't see it. I think they will make a run, but I think they will come up. They will come up short. I hope I'm wrong, but again, with this pitching, especially that bullpen, I just don't see how. I mean, all these other Met teams that overcame these huge deficits. If you look at the '69 Mets, the '73 Mets, there are a couple of other seasons where I jotted down. 2015, 2016, they had much better pitching than this squad. And I want to be wrong. Maybe somebody, let's just throw a name out. Maybe a Joey Lucchesi comes up with the minors and goes 9-1 or something like that. Maybe someone out of nowhere. A game like last night is a great way to jumpstart a season. It was an incredible finish. And like you guys said, it's the kind of game they've been losing this year, but winning last year. But for the Mets to get in, I think they have to get to around 85 wins. I did a little study before we went on of the last 10 years, all the teams that finished with the sixth best record in the National League, and their average win total was 85.2. So basically, that means the Mets from here on would have to go 45-31 to get to 85 wins. Definitely doable. The numbers say it's doable, but again, I look at that pitching and I just don't see it. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see it.
Okay. And I have to agree. I don't think they make the wild card. I think there's too many teams ahead of them and too many good teams, including the Dodgers and the Padres and Endor, the Giants or the Diamondbacks. Though they've handled the Diamondbacks surprisingly, I was really surprised that Diamondbacks came in playing some good ball. How about that kid Carroll? Is he not a good ball player?
Oh yeah,
That
he is.
left fielder, he is something else. But I don't think they make it. I think there's too many teams
Yeah,
to get
but
over.
They don't have to hit the Dodgers or the Diamondbacks. They just beat Cincinnati at this point, or Philadelphia at this point.
Well, Philadelphia's a lot better than we are right now.
I know, yeah. So Philadelphia is right now in the 6th wild card spot,
Yeah,
and they're they're 6 games better than us.
yeah. So,
But there's
I don't- I
75 games to play.
yeah.
Well, one other thing you have to take into account, the teams don't play each other as much now.
Yeah, that's
Everybody plays everybody. So it's not like the Mets are going to play the Phillies 12 more times or the Giants 6 more times or the Brewers 7 more times. They're finished with the Brewers, I think. I'm pretty sure they're finished
They
with
are.
the Giants
They are.
as well. They more than likely have one more series against the Phillies. And then you got the Marlins in there too, who are having a tremendous season. Talk about a team that was rebuilt. And once again, thank you, Derek Jeter, for getting out of there and letting that female general manager run the show. And she's put a tremendous team together.
And Barry, that's without the Sandy Alcantara having a good year.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But in fairness, a lot of those young pitchers and stuff were brought in with the Mr. Jeter was in charge there. He drafted a lot of those guys. A lot of the guys that came into their system. So he's got to get some credit for that team this year. And
I don't give him credit.
Yeah, not
He
from me.
gets.
I
Oh,
don't.
come
He doesn't get
on.
credit. He doesn't get credit.
he doesn't get the credit for bringing in Luis Arias, but whoever made that move, I guess it was Kim Nug,
Mhm.
however
Yeah.
you say it. She did that was one hell of a trade, and but see, they
Well,
had the
Pablo
pitching.
Lopez is a hell of a pitcher.
I know
That
But-
was a good trade for both teams.
that was an awesome trade.
I would
for
have loved
them.
to have Pablo Lopez.
And it's worked great for them, and their team we're gonna have to worry about in the future now. So you've got them, you've got them all, the Braves, and the Phillies to worry about in the future, and it's gonna be tough.
Everyone's getting better.
Everybody's getting better in the division, especially,
Mhm.
and we'll see where it goes. Barry, you have a message that you wanted to give out before we go?
Yeah, it's going to take a couple of minutes, and I just need to put my glasses on. And bear with me because I really want to do this. As you guys know, and a lot of people in our Mets Nation know, my wife Kathy's been in the hospital for several weeks recovering slowly from a major jaw reconstruction surgery. And I want to send a special thank you out to many members of our Mets family, starting with Lynn and Gary Cohen, who sent her a beautiful bouquet of flowers, and it really cheered her up. Unfortunately, while Kathy was in the hospital, she picked up a pneumonia, which is now fighting and has kept her in the hospital much longer than we wished and hoped. And there are a lot of people, so many of them have their own health issues, but I want to give a shout out to them. And it's basically about a 25-man roster. Some of my favorite, but certainly not all of my Mets friends. And I'm just going to throw their names out alphabetically. And Jeff, I know you know many of these people. And it's Alice, two Anne Marie's, AMB and AMS, and their spouses, Jim and George, Barbara, Christina, Elena, Fran, Jerry, Helen, Howard and Lisa, Jackie, Julia and Pete, Lori, Linda, Marcy and Scott, Pam, Randy, Sylvia and Ray, Tracy and Wilma, and a special kudos has to go out to the GKR administrator, Joan, who I haven't always seen eye to eye with, but deep down really showed her true colors in a very positive way by spreading the word out to our Mets GKR family, which initiated an outpouring of love, support, and prayers we never could have dreamed of. And of course, that includes you three guys as well. I thank you all for this shockingly positive amount of support that you have given Kathy and me. And God bless you all.
Well,
We
hope,
love our
Thank
Mets
you,
family.
and get well, Kathy.
Get well, Kathy.
Get well, Kathy.
Fast.
Thank you.
Because I know the missing her at the Met games at Citi Field, so her presence there is requested. So get well quick. All right,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you all so much. Do you guys you want to push something again with your show?
Well, I like to let people know that if you listen to episode 190 of Baseball and BBQ, you would hear the great Lindsey Berra along with Gary Mack subbing in for Leonard Abeman. And I hope, Gary, you enjoyed doing that with me because Lindsey was a great guest.
I have to say, Len, I'm glad you didn't make it. We had that was so terrific. We had a get together like a week or so ago with just some family and for Chelsea and my daughter, and I couldn't stop talking about it. We had some Yankee fans here. I told them to go listen to it because they would really get a big kick out of it, and it was such an enjoyable interview that I thank you a million times for asking me to sit in. And Len, anytime you need me to sit in for you, it's my pleasure.
Well, you know, Gary, I get a little nervous because I feel like I'm Wally Pip and you are Lou Gehrig. And, you know, every time you step in for me, Jeff says, you know, No, he doesn't. But I worry that he will say something like, "No, it might be a little better." The only thing that I have going for me is I think I could talk about barbecue a little more than you.
Oh, I can't talk about anything about barbecue except eating it.
Yeah, other
So,
than that, I'm doomed.
Well, Len, I just want to let everybody know that this current episode is former Met John Gibbons is on the show. He has a new book out, Gibby. And along with Len, you can talk about Dane Brady, who's
Dane
a big
Brady.
barbecue guy.
Yeah, Dane Brady's a barbecue guy. The episode is filled with stories. I mean, if you like stories, you're going to love this episode because Gibby has tons of stories. Dane Brady, we're talking to Dane Brady. We had somebody our friend Pine Tar, who introduced us. And the next thing you know, you like that nickname?
that's great.
So, sometimes he gets kicked out because there's too much Pine Tar. But so Dane Brady's talking, and it turns out he at one point was a ship's captain. He knew that, the movie The Perfect Storm?
Mhm.
Yes.
He knows, or he knew, he was good friends with the people that was based on. He was on the water that night, about 50 miles out from where it happened. And then he talks about another incident where he was on a ship, it capsized, and he had to save his father and his brother-in-law.
Oh, my
And I mean, the
goodness.
stories that he told. So between Gibby and Dane Brady was amazing. And then Jeff, coming out this Saturday,
Yeah,
what do we have as long as we're plugging?
the great writer Ira Burkow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah, Ira Burkow is that.
And if you-
Unbelievable.
And if you like hot dogs, Len.
Ralph Perazzo. This guy is the hot dog king. I'm telling you, you think he will spoil you with his hot dogs. You will not want to buy another package of hot dogs in the grocery store ever again. The guy makes an incredible hot dog. So that's a great episode too. Yeah.
And for those that don't know, go back in the archives and get the mustard guy on there too. So
yes.
Gold's horseradish
yeah.
and mustard.
Mark Gold. Yeah.
Mark Gold, and you got the hot dog guy. Next, they got to get the roll guy on there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they'll have the whole triumvirate.
And you know what? I'm just gonna we're plugging now. We're on a roll, but on a roll. But because I know we're gonna have a lot more Met fans listening to this. Obviously, everyone that Barry has asked to listen to. We had Sandy Alderson on, and if you want to hear a great interview with Sandy Alderson, I don't even know what episode it was, but check our
128.
128, Sandy Alderson.
And if you want to hear about a pitch, we spoke to Steve Traxel, episode 127.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Oh,
Hojo.
Can we also give
hey, this is my show.
oh, go ahead, Gary.
Sorry, Gary. Gary.
Well, I mean, I've had some guests on myself here.
You are the best. Mets Musings is the best.
Yes.
All
And
right?
you know what? We do owe everything for our podcast to you,
Oh
Gary.
no.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
guys, I just gave you a little bit of advice. You guys took the ball and you ran with it, and now you can help me out. We'll talk on the side. But I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight, Barry. I know you've been running back and forth to the hospital, so
Yeah, and if I could, if you wouldn't mind, as far as a plug,
sure.
I want to plug Katz Memorial Hospital for the wonderful staff, doctors and nurses, for the care they're giving my wife. And if I could also, one final prayer. She was mentioned earlier on the podcast, but Sarah Langs is fighting ALS courageously,
Oh,
and your heart breaks for that young woman. It's awful. So if we could just say a few prayers for that young lady, I think that would really be a nice thing to do.
Absolutely. And everybody also suffers from ALS.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an insidious disease,
Yep.
as is any of these diseases nowadays. And they seem to be getting stronger again. So let's all say a prayer for that. And
Yeah.
I'll probably get the woke crowd after me for mentioning prayer, but what the heck. And anyway, thank you all so much for joining us this week. And I hope that you'll hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube, as well as the like button. That way you'll always be informed when an episode of Mets Musing is coming out. And if you're listening to the audio version, it's available on everything. However you get your podcast, look for Mets Musings. It will be there. And if it's not, drop me a line at metsmusings@gmail.com and I will get it on there. So thank you all for listening. And until we meet again, remember to keep the faith, stay optimistic, and
Let's
Let's go,
go
Mets.
Mets.
I'm Gary Mack. I'll see you next time on another edition of Mets Musings.